CEO shakeup at Starbucks took over Wall Street this morning. A surprise to folks. Starbucks stock now sells off and is the largest gainer, while Chipotle is selling off. And so it's been a big deal here of what's going on. Let's get right to the story and bring in Nick Setyan, Managing Director, Restaurants Equity Research at Wedbush Securities. Great to see you. Some of your thoughts on this change. I mean, Laxman Narasimhan has been on such a short time. Howard Schultz supported the move and the change that Brian Niccol comes in from Chipotle. He's regarded very highly, but to your point, you say Starbucks is no Chipotle. Some of your thoughts.
Well, sure. I mean, if we kind of think back to, when Brian joined, Chipotle from Taco Bell, it was pretty much the same category. Chipotle hadn't done any kind of, marketing in its history, very little menu innovation. And those were the kinds of skill sets that, Brian was bringing to the table. And really the challenge was to bring back the loyal customer set of Chipotle that, had been lost because of the food scare. The challenge is a very different one at Starbucks. We basically need Brian to address the new customers that Starbucks doesn't seem to be able to get. So we'll see if that's something that he can accomplish. I'm obviously a lot more skeptical than the market.
Yeah, look, in the last quarter, there was a lot of talk about Starbucks' weakness, the incredibly weak quarter, USA sales failing, Howard Schultz coming out and saying that Laxman Narasimhan had to spend more time with the workers and understand this while things were doing better on the S&P and things seemed to be picking up. He really missed the boat. Right? I mean, he's been on such a short time, and this was not an Elliott management move. This was really Starbucks and Howard Schultz, who really doesn't have the same interest in Starbucks anymore, but he certainly shows his heart is there for it to do well.
Look, this will be the fourth CEO in 4 years, right? So I think the Starbucks challenge is a bigger one than any single person. I think, ultimately, this isn't an issue with the Starbucks loyal customer, right? The ones on their loyalty app continue to go to Starbucks more often. They continue to spend more. The issue is, going after and getting a different customer set, that aspirational customer, maybe the lower income customer, that was going to Starbucks over the last 2-3 years during COVID when, you have stimulus checks going out to everyone. And, in the current sort of macroeconomic backdrop, that customer set isn't willing to pay, $7, $8, $9, $10 for a cup of Frappuccino. And so, unless Brian can, has the power to change some macro headwinds, I'm not really sure what he can really do in the near term, frankly.
Yeah, look, it's 39,000 stores. It certainly seems like an uphill battle in some ways because it's not the same landscape. To your point, it's a $9 coffee. So much of it is sugar and things like that maybe have been out of favor a little bit. So right now you have a neutral on Starbucks and an $80 target, right?
Correct.
And then any thoughts on Chipotle and where that, selling off 10% today, could that be a buying opportunity for folks or not necessarily? Because you do have Scott Boatwright, the COO, who's been at Chipotle for 7 years, taking and assuming the role until they find a replacement.
Yeah, look, both Scott and Jack Hartung, I give them, as much credit for the turnaround at Chipotle as Brian Niccol, frankly. And I think they're both very capable leaders. Chipotle, obviously the fundamentals haven't changed, in a day. So I definitely think that, Chipotle's fundamentals are on autopilot. And I think any shareholder should take a look at this name and do the work at this point, given a 10%, pullback.
Yeah. So Chipotle is still a great name and still sort of running on a well-oiled machine, I guess, is what we could say. Let's talk about the landscape and the environment of Starbucks. How many of these names do you actually cover? Because Starbucks has competition in the coffee space. It has competition, Luckin Coffee in China. What's the competitive landscape like? Maybe name some names of some of these kinds of places, and the consumer that's been pinching the wallet a little bit too.
Yeah, the most interesting one that's probably traded is Dutch Brothers, which a name that I actually like quite a bit, especially after their sort of post-earnings pullback. Ultimately, as far as I'm concerned, they're in the first innings of basically, copying the Starbucks playbook over the past decade or 2 decades. And so I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit there that this new management team at Dutch Brothers can take advantage of to build shareholder equity over time. Starbucks is just a very mature business at a time that, on the margin, you have macroeconomic headwinds accelerating, particularly with that lower income customer. And so it's going to be a much more challenging, I think, environment to make big changes in for Brian than, what we had seen with Chipotle a few years ago.
Just quickly, Dutch Bros is down 1 month, 30%. So Bros is the ticker symbol, folks. You could look it up. It's at 29.61. What's your target there if you like it?
My target there is, over $40. I like it very much.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Nick. Great to see you, and thanks for being on with us on such an important day
For
Starbucks shareholders. Yeah, Nick Setyan of Wedbush. Thank you.